Welcome to Storied, the untold Jewish stories behind your favorite music. Season 1, The Beatles. This project started off as a live show created in partnership with the Berman Theater at the J Detroit, and has grown exponentially since then, including shows about other bands and other genres. Now we're doing this podcast where in each episode we're going to dive deep into the history and the legacy of most of our favorite band, and that is the Beatles, focusing on where Jews and the Jewish community contributed and collaborated to their stardom. Each episode begins with a recording from our live show telling a quick and high-level version of the story, followed by this episode, this deep dive really getting into it, as I interview some really special guests. It's no secret Jewish events today can be appropriately hard. We have some serious issues that we're grappling with as a community, and they often require a box of tissues and a therapy appointment afterwards. The Storied live show was conceived and developed at the J in Detroit in partnership with the Berman Theater, not as the answer to this problem, but as an answer to this problem. We are focused on a positive narrative, Jewish joy, and reminding people about the great contributions made by the Jewish community. We're excited to see Storied grow with this podcast and many more live shows. Now, you may be here because you're a Beatles fan, or you may be here because you're looking for positive Jewish content. In either case, our intent is for all of your delight. And I think you're going to get there. If you're watching this on YouTube, you see this awesome Storied shirt that I'm wearing, and it was designed and made by a sponsor of the show, Yonatees. Now, Yonatees makes awesome custom merch and some really great Jewish-themed merch, like the ones you're seeing popping up on the screen here. If you're listening on an audio feed, pop over to YouTube just to see what I'm showing you, because it's worth it, and I think you're going to like it. If you'd like to sponsor an episode, we would love to talk to you. Check out the links in the story notes, including our website, www.storied.show, for more information about who we are, what we do, the other bands and genres we've covered, or how we can bring this live show to your city. If you like what we've done here, please leave us a review and maybe some stars. If you have any questions, hit us up on our socials. We'd love to hear from you. All the links, again, are in the show notes. And with that, let's get this show on the long and winding road. Well, I'm about to say a very strange sentence, and that is, welcome to the season finale of Storied, untold Jewish stories behind your favorite artists. Season 1, The Beatles. And I gotta tell you folks, it has been a long and hard road, but we are here, and I'm really grateful for all the support and encouragement and interactions that we have. Even more than grateful, I'm really proud of the product that we put out, and I'm just glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're enjoying this. I've learned a lot in the last couple of months as we've been producing this. Some of our episodes are Beatles heavy with a lot of Beatles content, like episode 6, which is about the song Twist and Shout, where we had Bert Burns' son, Brett Burns, on the show. The first episode with Moody Sandberg, that was intense and just all amazing Beatles content. And even episode 7 with David Mannheim from Dopey Pod, that was great Beatles content. And if you're a Beatles fan, I hope you made sure to check those out. And then some of them were really Jewish community oriented and Jewish topic oriented. Episode 4 with Lee Trink and episode 3 with Amanda Markowitz. I mean, those two, they had Beatles content, but they were really heavy on the Jewish community stuff. And actually, last week's episode 13 with Rabbi Susan and Hallel, talking about Rabbi Abraham Feinberg. Yeah, there was Beatles content in there, but it was really focused. And I think that that's okay. I think that the meld of the two is what we're doing here. Today's episode has a little bit of both. Actually, today's episode has a lot of bit of both. There's a lot of great Beatles content here. And actually, our guest, Judy, blew my mind with a very important piece of Beatles information that I didn't know about a Jew that's contributed and collaborated with the band. And we'll get to that. But this was really a special episode for many reasons. In fact, our editor, Andrea, texted me while she was editing this and goes, "Can I be friends with Judy? Because she's amazing. And she just sounds like somebody that I'd love to have a relationship with." And I was like, good luck. I think we all feel that way. Judy's just amazing. Before I do the intro for Judy, I want to tell you that Storied is growing again. It's growing more. So what started off as just a live show is now a live touring show. We are booking shows around the country. If you're interested in bringing the Storied show to your city, hit us up. Obviously, we've got the podcast, and season 2 is going to be about grunge, and we're going to launch that in the spring of 26. And I'm really excited for some of the stuff that we've got planned for season 2. We've also been asked to build a curriculum, something that we can take into classrooms to teach Jewish kids about Jewish joy and Jewish pride through the lens of Storied, talking about these places where Jews in the Jewish community contributed and collaborated with bands. I can't overstate how excited I am to bring this to Jewish youth. It's really incredible. If you want to help support us in that endeavor, we would be very grateful. Now let's talk about Judy Gold for a moment. For the last 3+ decades, Judy has been one of the sharpest, funniest, most fearless voices in American comedy. She's an Emmy Award-winning writer and performer. She's a trailblazing Jewish advocate. She's a powerful voice in the LGBT community. You've seen her on HBO, Comedy Central, Netflix, Broadway, TV shows. She's got this amazing book, Yes, I Can Say That, and that's a recent book. She also has a first book, 25 Questions for a Jewish Mother, is really something special, and we talk about that in the episode as well. Judy's comedy is bold, it's brilliant, it's unapologetically Jewish, it's rooted in truth, and I think that you're going to find our conversation spectacular. When I'm looking for words of wisdom, Judy doesn't whisper, she says it loudly. And with that, let it be. Or Lu Yehi. Or the combination of both.
In the midst of the Yom Kippur War of 1973, a song emerged that would become a symbol of hope and resilience for the people of Israel. That song was Lu Yehi, written and composed by the legendary Naomi Shemer, known as the First Lady of Israeli song and poetry. Shemer's original intention was to write Hebrew lyrics for the Beatles song Let It Be, but she found herself dissatisfied with the translation of the title, which would have been Yehi, which could be misinterpreted as a dismissive whatever. So instead, she chose the song, the words Lu Yehi, which alter it slightly to If Only. And that transformed the song's meaning from a passive acceptance to an active prayer. Encouraged by her husband, poet Mordechai Shevitz, who had just returned from his own reserve military service, Shemer reimagined the Beatles' melody and crafted a new, uniquely Jewish tune to accompany her heartfelt lyrics. The result was a song that captured the essence of a nation at war, yearning for peace, and a safe return for its soldiers. Lu Yehi quickly became the unofficial anthem of the Yom Kippur War, resonating deeply with the Israeli people. Shemer's poignant lyrics, with their plea, Ana Lu Yehi, please let there be, struck a chord with a nation grappling with the uncertainty and the sacrifice of war. Interestingly, Lu Yehi was not Shemer's most famous composition. That honor belongs to her song Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, or Jerusalem of Gold. The iconic song celebrates Israel's triumph and recapture of the old city of Jerusalem during the Six-Day War. These two songs, written just 6 years apart, reflect the duality of Israeli and Jewish soul, the majesty of victory and the humility of prayer. I think about some of the beautiful music that's been written in the last 22 months and what will be the post-October 7th and post-war anthem. I'm guessing the song Od Yoter Tov, which means it will keep getting better, is going to be that anthem for today's post-war anthem, as both an acknowledgement of pain and a hope for the future. Now, we've reached the end of our incredible journey through the story of the Beatles and the remarkable connections, the collaborations, and the contributions of the Jewish world. From the earliest days in Liverpool to the peak of their fame and beyond, we see how the Jewish community played a crucial role in shaping the band's music, style, and cultural impact. As we close this chapter, I will leave you with a final thought. The story of the Beatles and the Jewish community is at its core the story of the power of collaboration, the importance of community. Naomi collaborated and took inspiration from the Psalms. Lennon and McCartney were magic together. They were greater than the sum of their parts. George Harrison, on paper, shouldn't have even been led into the Beatles. He was too young and he was a geek. But he played exactly what was needed to be played. And Ringo is the most straightforward drummer in rock history. But he listened to the songs, and he added only what needed to be there. Brian Epstein, the gay Jew, Cousin Brucey and Murray the K, the eccentric DJs, Bob Dylan and the other Jewish musicians and comedians and actors and philosophers and scientists that all inspire them. None of this would have been possible without the Beatles being open to coming together with the different cultures, perspectives, and different talents. And remember, these were, for the most part, either World War II survivors or people who were alive and adjacent to World War II survivors. They were channeling that energy into this comet-like burst of creativity. And that gives me hope for what our community can do today in the post-October 7th world. But as soon as the collaboration stopped being authentic and loving, and it became forced, it was over. And that, I believe, is the true legacy of the Beatles. It's a reminder that when we open our hearts and our minds to each other, when we embrace our differences and celebrate our shared humanity, we can create something truly extraordinary. And that's collaboration and contribution. While John and Paul stopped collaborating, we, the Jewish community, don't have to stop collaborating. So as you leave here tonight, I hope you carry that message with you. We're trying to put that message out there. The collaboration, the contribution, the positive Jewish stories. I hope you find some Jewish joy in what we're doing.
Hey, before we get to this interview, I want to take a moment and thank our new sponsor, Tequila Kosher Spirits. And they make the kosher tequila that I am seeing popping up around Detroit. And if you know me personally, or if you follow my social media, you'll know that I'm sober and I don't drink. But when I go to different Jewish events and I hear this topic come up, everybody has really great things to say about it. So I'm excited that Tequila reached out and said that they wanted to sponsor the podcast. Every special Chaim deserves a special spirit, but finding high quality kosher spirits is near impossible. Until now. So we're introducing Tequila Kosher Tequila, the world's first Jewish-inspired tequila, celebrating culture, community, and tradition. Tequila is 100% kosher and 100% additive-free. Check it out at buy.tequilaspirits.com for a smooth tequila blanco and bold tequila reposado. Tequila, l'chaim like you mean it. The link is in the show notes. Now let's hear this interview. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Storied, the untold Jewish stories behind your favorite music. This is the final episode of season 1, and I'm here with Judy Gold, and I'm excited for this. So welcome, Judy.
Thank you, Benji. Nothing I love more than music, Jews, and music, and food.
Well, that's why we're fast becoming best friends.
Yes, exactly.
Before we start, I have to tell you that last night, my wife and I were driving to a concert. We went to see Andrea Bocelli at Little Caesars Arena, and shocked at how amazing and enjoyable it was. The reason I bring this up is because I was running through the list of questions that I was planning on talking to you about today. And I said, I got to think of some like funny and witty things to say. You know, I think I'm a funny person in general. And she goes,
It hasn't happened
babe,
yet, Benji.
She goes, babe, don't try to out funny the professional comedian. Just leave it alone and let her be funny and you be you. Like, don't try to out joke the comedian.
Right.
I was like, oh, you know what? That takes a lot of pressure off. I'm not trying. So she laughed at me and called me an idiot for even thinking that I could.
Oh, she's smart.
She really is. She
That's
really
right.
is. So today we're talking about the Beatles, and we're going to talk a lot about who they were and the Jewish community's contribution and, you know, how we as a community collaborated and contributed to the Beatles and also how they contributed to us. But let's start off by talking about your love of the Beatles and how you got introduced to the Beatles and your relationship with this zeitgeist.
Well, I mean, I was born in 1962, so the Beatles are, you know, a soundtrack of my entire childhood. From when they were the mop tops to when they became really heady, I guess you would say. And the amount of music they created, the kind of music they created, the fact that they were the zeitgeist. I mean, you know, I think in terms of comedy, and I always think, you know, I always say Joan Rivers was in her 10 decades of doing stand-up, or 5 decades, God, she didn't live to 100, 5 decades, in her 50 years, you knew exactly where women stood during each one of those decades. And I feel like with the Beatles, you knew where the world stood. You knew what the younger generation was thinking, or they sort of gave us things to ponder. And just like how comedy is the most palatable way to get a point across, because if you're going to make someone laugh and think, you're a winner.
Right.
And they did the same thing with music. I mean, music changes your whole body function when you're listening to music. And I'm from the generation where we sat and listened. We got an album, we took the cellophane off, we opened it up, we put it on our turntable, and we literally sat on the floor for hours looking at the liner notes and listening.
Yep.
And that was an activity. We didn't listen while we were doing something else. We actively listened. And, just like, you think of, Simon and Garfunkel, you think of Bob Dylan, you think of, Joni Mitchell. Yeah, all of these songs that had meaning during a time where a lot of people were like listening to, hey, I want to dance with you. This
Mhm.
was, hey, I want to change the world. What if? It's very Jewish in the way it's presented, because you think, I always say, why, people always ask, why are there so many Jewish comedians? And it's like, because we used it as a weapon and a salve, but comedy, but we also are taught, like if you go to your bar bat mitzvah, they say, take this text that has been discussed over and over for thousands of years and make something new out of it. Make it your own. And I think that the fact that we're taught to think out of the box and interpret things and find something new and argue and see so many different points or parts of something, I think that's what the Beatles did with their music.
Yeah. You're hitting so many points on the things that we talk about here. One of the ones that I didn't expect, though, is when you said, like, this is how we can fix the world. So we're going to discuss the wrap up of season 1 of the Beatles show. But in the wrap up of season 2 of the second show that we did, which was about the grunge scene, I said that the Jewish value that we found, or that I found in the grunge scene, was the idea of recognizing that the world is broken, that there's problems, and rather than complaining about it, we're going to do something about it. Exactly.
Right.
And grunge and Tikkun Olam don't necessarily sound like overlapping values, but they absolutely are.
100%.
When you look at the advocacy of bands like Pearl Jam and,
right,
the Beastie Boys and Jane's Addiction, and, just so many of these bands were focused on the music as a vehicle to make the world a better place.
Right.
And
it's like, yeah, it's a unifier, like,
Mhm.
I like this song, you like this song, I don't know you, we might have completely opposite views politically, socially, whatever, but
Yeah.
we both love this song, and we both
Yeah.
find something in the song, and that is such a way of Jewish thinking. That is Jewish
Yeah.
thinking.
In one of the stories, and it's one of the episodes of this season, is Bob Dylan's contribution to the Beatles. And in that story, we discuss how they were drinkers. They weren't drug users in their early years. And the first time they met Bob Dylan, Paul and John said, "What do you think of our music?" And Bob, being the contrarian that he was, he said, "If you want to change the world," he goes, "you're doing a good job for pop music, but if you want to change the world, smoke this, get an acoustic guitar, and write poetry." And that's where they made the sharp left turn. They did the album Rubber Soul. And in fact, Norwegian Wood, John Lennon said that he was conjuring, what would Bob Dylan do here? And really that opened up the doors for them to get into weed and LSD and all the
Right.
fun stuff that they were doing, and really changed it from, happy-go-lucky love songs to advocacy. And
Right.
and that's I don't want to say that started with Bob Dylan, but that was encouraged by Bob Dylan
Right,
and
right.
really, shaped the way that they did it. So this story is about the song "Let It Be" and the way that Naomi Shemer sort of channeled that into the song "Lu Yehi." But I find that the most fascinating part of this story is that her more famous song was Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, and that
Yes.
was written after the 1967 war, the Six-Day War, where she was talking about the glory and the majesty of winning the war and how amazing that felt in the Jewish world. But then the Yom Kippur War happened, and there was this realization that even in the victory of war, there's a heavy price to pay, and there's sorrow, and there's pain, and there's a price. And that's Lu Yehi.
Right.
And I think about the last 2 years and what is the song or the anthem that we're going to get from this time period. And it's possible that song hasn't been written yet. I've thought about the song Od Yoter Tov, which, if you've been to any Jewish event in the last 2 years, you've heard this song. But what do you think about the idea of this anthem, and what did we learn from this war?
Well, what have we learned? It's just
other than fuck me, right?
Right. It's so complicated and nuanced. And what I've learned is most people can't handle that. They can't handle more than one thought. I mean, we're dealing now with this war with social media, which we didn't have before. And hateful people sort of, what's it called? What's that? Brainwashing, people to think a certain way.
Right.
And so, for me, and I have to say, what's the anthem that's gotten me through the past 2 years, 2 months, whatever, is Hatikva. Because it means hope. And it really, I mean, I just got back from Israel on Wednesday night, and my son plays professional basketball there. And I got to the first game, and I've been to his basketball games for years, all his college games, and they sing the national anthem. And I stand, and I'm proud to be an American. And to go to a basketball game, which is an American sport, created at a Y in Springfield, Massachusetts, and for them to sing Hatikva, I mean, it was very emotional for me.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, there's so much music that like affects me in such a deep, deep way, especially since October 7th, 2023. Like it's because I have so many emotions. I'm confused, so sad. I'm angry. I'm resilient. I'm hopeful, but I love, I was listening to her version, her song. And of course we all know Yerushalayim Shel Zahav. We all know that. If you're a Jew I don't know how you could never have heard that song. But to go back and listen to this sort of Let It Be, but it's such a Jewish version because we're taking Let It Be, 3 words, and we can argue, discuss what those 3 words mean. And that is so Jewish right there. It's like taking, some sort of passage and saying, no, it means this, no, it means this, but it means all of it. It means all of it.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't.
A lot of it is context and the way that you say it. It's interesting. As you were saying that, I was thinking about when Naomi was writing the song Lu Yehi, she really wanted it to be a literal translation of "Let It Be," and she was going to use the Hebrew word "Sheyihyeh," which means "it will be," and that she found was too passive. It could almost be dismissive, and so she was
Right.
like, "No, I can't use a dismissive version. Lu Yehi is more of an active. It will be."
Right.
And it's an active. So she changed the terminology specifically to make it mean something more with strength and vibrato, so to speak. So,
And also, it's connection with God. If you believe in God or you don't believe in God, you can still let it be. And and so that how you're letting it be, how you're justifying the justification for let it be can
mhm,
come from a higher power, or it could just come from, you know, letting go of control.
yeah. You, I don't know if you read my profile or anything about me, but I say I'm a proud Jewish atheist, and so
Yeah.
you're speaking my language here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And also, it's such a Jewish, how many times I went to my mother or I said to my kids, just let it, not let it be, but in a way saying let it be. It's such a, what are you going to do?
right,
And yet there's also a version of it that I think she was saying, I mean, I don't know. This is just my interpretation of let it be, but don't sit back. It doesn't mean you sit on your ass.
right,
It means this is what it is. Stop fighting the reality and, be active. It can be active.
right.
That's what's so interesting about those three words is like, it's not passive.
Right. You remind me of my grandfather, who was a very active person in the synagogue and he was a pretty amazing man. I often refer to him as my North Star. But whenever he would talk to somebody about something and they would say, "Well, God willing, we'll do that,"
Yeah,
he'd
yeah,
say,
yeah.
"God's willing, you got to do the work."
Right.
Right? Like don't rest on the if God will
100%.
make it. Yeah, you do the
And
work.
look, I'm a Jew. I'm a woman. I'm gay. I mean, I have been protesting and fighting and speaking out since I'm, 21 years old, fighting and fighting and fighting for equality, for, women's rights, against like so much stuff, free speech. And your grandfather was right. 100%. It's like,
Mhm.
no, God put you, or whoever, you came to this earth.
Use the word God because it's easier than saying
Yeah,
higher
I
power of
mean,
your understanding.
right. I can't stand higher power, but whatever. Um, I mean, it's so politically correct. Your higher power. But you're put on this earth and you can either let other people do and you sit and complain,
Right.
or you can do and make a difference. Tikkun olam.
Right. What's the with the clapping emojis, right? Tikkun fucking olam.
Right,
Gotta get it
exactly.
done.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Can you talk about how the experience of being a woman, a lesbian, a gay activist, somebody who's spent a career in this environment of both in your professional career and in your personal life, advancing this community. And then on October 7th, we find
Oh.
out that there's a group called Queers for Palestine and who are anti-Semites and are trying to, not trying who turn their back on us. And I think you got the
It's
question.
such a good question. October 7th happened. It was it made me physically ill. I'm sure it was something I had been warned about my whole life by my mother. It can happen again. They hate us. And we used to just make fun of my mother all the time. Like we'd be like sitting at the table eating. They all hate us. Everyone hates us. Constantly talking about how anti-Semitic everyone. And we were all like, Ma, shut up. And of course, she's gone now. And we're all like, my brother and sister and I are like, oh my God, she was so right. But so that was October 7th was a gut punch. And I want to tell you a story. So I came out on stage in 1996 when my son was born, and I had already been an established comic. I already had an HBO special. I was on a series, and my son is born, and I have all this material about, the encounters we have as same-sex parents that were so funny. And I thought, every comic talks about their family. How am I not going to talk about mine? And also, if I'm not talking about my family on set, what kind of message does that give to my kids? At the time, it was one kid. Oh, we don't talk about this. We're ashamed. I was proud of my family. So I came out on stage as a gay parent, which made it more palatable for so many people because I was really talking about what it was like to be a parent and a mother, which is something they could all relate to.
Right.
But it
You were
was a
normalizing
shift.
something that was normal.
Right. And by making them laugh, as we know, stand-up comedy is a very Jewish art form. And a lot of the greatest stand-ups came out of the Borscht Belt. And it's a way of getting people to love you and to tell the truth. And so after, I came out, I could feel in the very beginning, the audience shift like, wait, what? I have these preconceived feelings and notions about this. And now she's ruining all that, And so, and I hear from, I'm 63 now, but like 30-year-olds come up to me. I thank you. I used to go in my basement and be like, who is this loud Jewish lesbian talking about her family? It made me feel seen. Representation is everything, which is why this BDS and this other shit that goes on is so infuriating. Like we're here, assholes. But anyway, and I felt the audience, shift until, it was very difficult until now when I go in a comedy club and they're up there, I'm trans, I'm non-binary, they, that, and no one gives a shit. And it's like, you had no idea, because I started in the straight clubs and I kept going in the straight clubs. But on October 8th or 9th, I got on stage. I don't think I got on stage October 8th because I think I was just whatever. But the first time I went on stage after, and by the way, through my entire career, it was never cut the gay stuff. It was, you're too Jewish, all throughout my career. I mean, I did get, don't be gay on this show or don't be, but it was really, you don't have to be so Jewish. And it was always Jews saying that because they were so afraid. And I get on stage after October 7th to do a set, and a benign Jewish joke that would kill. Nothing. I was like in shock. This was worse than when I came out on stage. It was like, I said, wait, what is going on? Like my stomach dropped in my body. And I was like, are you kidding me? That you can't laugh at a joke about my mother, my Jewish mother? And I had never felt anything like this. And they would yell, Israel's an apartheid state and free Palestine. And it was shocking. When you have facts and knowledge and you see how brazen these people are without facts or knowledge, it's really frustrating. And we're in a comedy club. And you're supposed to laugh because it's not about you. It's not about you. No comic gets up in the morning and is like, oh, how can I insult this one? How can I? No, it's not about you it's about us. It's about how we see the world. You see a disabled comic on stage. The next time you encounter someone with that disability, you're more compassionate and more comfortable with that person because you saw this comic talking about what it's like to have that disability, and
Right.
the same with the Jews, and so it was really hard because I noticed that none of the gay organizations that I had worked for, done galas for, worked with, said anything about October 7th. And I called them out. I said, where are you people? As someone who's an activist, you're like, wait, I marched for you. I stood up for you. Where the fuck are you? Harvey Milk. Hello? Jew. Edie
Right.
Windsor, who was the plaintiff in the marriage case. Jew. Robbie Kaplan, the lawyer who got marriage, who went in front of the Supreme Court and got marriage, the marriage law passed. Jew. Where are you people? And I called them out, and some of them said something. But the Queers for Palestine was so fucking, are you kidding me? Like, it's laughable. It was laughable to me. I always think and joke, and I was like, are you seriously? Go there. I just tell them, please go to Gaza, have fun, enjoy your, dress up as a woman, dress up however you want. I've been on 2 LGBTQ missions to Israel, and I say this on stage now. I say, they have 4 gay pride parades, one every Sunday in June. If a Palestinian escapes because they're gay or trans and they will be killed or thrown off a building and gets to Israel, they are granted asylum. They're given counseling, health care. They set them up with jobs. And, one of the social workers at an LGBTQ center in Haifa, Palestinian, like, these people have no idea.
Right.
And they just like, oh, they're the victim. They're the victim. And it's like, to blame American Jews for the way someone is conducting a war in another country is so beyond. It's like, oh, so you said, was it shocking? And that they're now Queers for Palestine. These people were always anti-Semitic. Like, that's what I learned. It's like, you hate Jews. You've always hated Jews or had some sort of prejudice or ignorance. And here's a gift. Like, yep, knew it.
Right.
And
Here's
it's
the
like,
vehicle.
right, throw out your cell phone. Don't get like a heart transplant. Don't use your Waze. Don't drink clean water. I mean, there's so much. As I say, Google Nobel Peace Prizes. Google Nobel Prizes, okay? And have fun with that.
Right. For anybody listening who didn't understand why Judy just said, throw out your cell phone, don't use Waze, don't drink clean water. Those are all things that Jews invented. And so those are contributions. And so if you hate Jews, you hate Israel, those are.
Yeah, that's why this whole BDS,
Right.
boycott,
right. Don't
divest.
use a computer with an Intel chip, because that was also invented in Israel. So
don't use your shopping cart,
Right.
in the groceries. I mean, there's so much stuff. Don't listen to music. Don't listen to Christmas songs. Okay?
Right.
It's like, you're so fucking dumb. And we're 0.2% of the population. Like, come on, there's 15 million Jews. We're not even at the number of Jews before the Holocaust. Okay? We haven't even replentified, whatever the word is.
Right.
And yet there's 2 billion Muslims. And you know what? There's 21% of the population in Israel is not Jewish, is Arab, is Muslim. Like, get your that's where the frustrating, confusing stuff comes from.
Right.
And it's like, Israel is not perfect. And please have fun. You can criticize the government if you know how the government works. Just like you can criticize the Trump and the government here, because it's a democracy. I was there last week. They're all protesting in front of Netanyahu's house. Like, nothing.
Right.
And for gays. Are you fucking kidding me?
And if you're a gay person, Palestinian or Jewish, being in Israel is the safest place for you for 1,000 miles in any direction. Like,
you can't go anywhere else. Nowhere else.
right. Get to Europe.
Tel Aviv is the gayest city in the gay of gays.
Right. You know, when I was growing up, that was like an insult. Now it's
Right.
a point of pride, right? Like,
right, because you know that we make every place better. So whatever. But yeah, it's really like as if any Jew wants innocent Palestinians dying or babies or children. Are you fucking kidding me? You go to Israel, all they want is peace.
Right.
And to live side by side. Yes, there are people who don't want that. Just like we have right-wing people, grabbing people off the street and saying, get the fuck out of our country, even though you've lived here your whole life and have contributed to society. Yes, there are bad people. There are bad people here. Go there. Go there.
Right. Right. It's amazing. You mentioned something that is a very personal part of my experience over the last 2 years. You mentioned sitting at the table with your mother and her saying everybody hates us, and I've talked about this on this podcast and in other places. My grandfather and my grandmother, two of my grandparents, were Holocaust survivors. And, my grandfather used to say that America and Canada are the greatest opportunities for Jews in the last 2,000 years, right? This is the golden age of diaspora Jewish life. And for that reason, my grandfather used to talk about celebrating Thanksgiving and celebrating Independence Day, celebrating these, we participate because this is what we do. He goes, but just know it can change at the drop of a hat. And I remember saying, like, Zadie, it's the 90s. Nothing like this will ever happen again. What are you talking about? And actually, I was listening to Dan Senor's podcast, Call Me Back, the inside, whatever it is, the paid version. And he said, somebody asked him about the October 8th Jew and what that means. And he explained it. And then he said, the October 6th Jew doesn't exist anymore. That was a snapshot in Jewish history that isn't going to exist for decades. And I was like, oh, this conversation that you had with your mom and that I had with my grandparents, my daughter doesn't need that conversation because she's living through this. That means that my grandchildren are the next people who are going to grow up, hopefully, without this sort of environment. And I'm going to have this conversation with my grandchildren, and they're going to say, you're crazy. And hopefully,
who knows? I'm so happy you brought that up with the patriotism. My father served in World War II, and he never spoke about it. He was in London during Blitzkrieg, but he never talked about the war. And but anti-Semitism was a very active topic in our house, just like your Zadie. And I'm sure they were the same age. My mother was born in 1922. My father was born in 1916. And my grandmother was born in 1896. And she used to share a bedroom with me on the weekends. She used to come visit. And so their perspective, they were older when they had me, 41 and 47. And their perspective was completely different than, even my partner, Elisa. Her parents are only 22 years older than her, and mine were the next generation. And I am telling you, that flag, that American flag, was out for every minor American holiday, every one of them. Thanksgiving, my mother's favorite holiday. The United States, thank God for the United States, and Canada. The appreciation. Look, God bless America. Think of all the anthems and the love of this country. Think of, Gershwin, Rhapsody in Blue. Like, there's so much love of America and these Jewish immigrants. Every one of my parents' friends who had an accent was a Holocaust survivor when I was growing up, and loved this country. And I have to say, thank God my parents aren't alive to see what's going on, because it would be soul crushing to them. Yeah. And I used to have a podcast, and I've spoke to a bunch of Holocaust survivors not a bunch, but a handful. And I asked them what's going on now in the zeitgeist here. How does it mirror what was happening where you were in Europe in the 30s? And they're like, it's the same. I mean, it's out of the playbook. And yet it's coming from not only these very ultra left and ultra right, but it's coming from a terrorist organization that has taken over our educational system by giving so much money to these colleges and flooding social media with imagery and falsehoods. And yet we're not educated enough here to say, this is true, this is not true. You know, we don't think like when I go back to sitting on that floor and the carpeting, listening to an entire album. They don't listen to an entire album. They listen to one song, they get bored of that song, get to the next song. I can't tell you how many times we're in the car and I'm like getting into a song and my son is like, nah, we're done with this one. I'm like, no, we're not done with it. And he goes to the next song, you know?
Oh, it's so funny. You know, when I listen to music and I get introduced to new music, I don't listen to singles. I like to listen to albums. And my daughter's like, dude, they put out the single so that we could just hear the one good song. And I'm like, that's not how I like to appreciate music.
Right.
But
and that's how you don't. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
So something that you said earlier is something that I just went through mentally. So I was just thinking to myself, you know, we've got this podcast that we're talking about the Jewish contribution to the Beatles, and we're not talking about the Beatles. We're talking, and it's like there's too much Jewy stuff right now. And I was like, no. You know, and I was thinking about that. Made me think about what you said about people on stage saying like, you know, don't worry about the gay stuff. Don't be so Jewy. And I realized like, no, this is the conversation, and that's okay. And so
and
I just
also,
wanted to sort of tell on myself, like I just had that experience.
Oh, it's so, I mean, also, which I don't think most people know, you know, when I was growing up, I'm sure this happened to you, and I'd still do it. When I would watch TV with my family and my parents, a character would come on, the Jew, non-Jew, anti-Semite, you know, like married a Jew. Everything was in Jewland.
Right.
But 3 of the Beatles married Jewish women.
What do you mean 3 of the Beatles?
Everyone but
Paul
John
McCartney's.
Lennon. Paul McCartney.
What Jewish woman? Who did George Harrison?
Okay, here we go. I did this whole
Shit.
deep dive for you.
Shit.
Okay, ready?
Am I in trouble?
Yeah. Paul was engaged to Jane Asher.
Yep. We got that.
A Jew. Until she found him in bed with Jewish scriptwriter Francie Schwartz, who had flown in from New York to try and interest him in something she had written. Breaking up after a short affair with her, he found himself enchanted by the Jewish fashion photographer Linda Eastman, daughter of... Okay, so that's that. George Harrison was first married to Patty Boyd, who later wed Eric Clapton, before marrying Olivia Arias, a South African Jew with whom he had his only son. Ringo's stepfather was Jewish. After divorcing, Barbara Bach, formerly Goldbach.
She was
3
the Bond
Jewish
girl.
Women, but they were all assimilated. Arias was brought up as Roman Catholic, but they are halakhically Jewish. and John, when he wanted spiritual guidance, turned to a rabbi, Shlomo Riskin. And he visited him weekly. So
yeah, but George Harrison didn't marry any Jews.
I just said he was married to Patty Boyd, and then
Patty
he married
Boyd's
Olivia Arias, a South African Jew, whom he had his only son. Arias.
Olivia Harrison. She was Jewish? I can't.
And look at her face.
Goodness. Look at her face.
She has Jew face.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
All right, we're doing this live, folks.
Yep.
All right. Well, now I need to update my script
And
and
Arias is such a Jewish name anyway, but yeah. South
oh my
African
goodness.
Jew.
All right. All right. This is mind blowing.
Oh my
Okay.
God, I stumped you.
You stumped me. This is amazing. How did this not come up until now?
And you know Elvis was Jew too.
I know Elvis. When the first time I did the live show, when I mentioned Elvis, somebody called out Jew, and I was like,
That yeah, my mother would be like Jewish, the maternal grandmother, and he has a Magen David on his
it's so
tombstone.
funny. It's so funny. Okay, so in the wrap up of the live show, when I'm telling this story, I talk about sort of what I've learned and hopefully what you learned in the process of seeing this. And what I learned is the Jews who contributed to the Beatles and the Jews who collaborated with the Beatles, from their wives, their girlfriends, to Brian Epstein,
yeah,
right, to Bob Dylan, to Burt Burns, who wrote the song "Twist and Shout," to the owners of the Cavern Club and the managers of the Cavern Club, and
also all of their business managers and accountants. I know it's a stereotype, but they were surrounded by Jews.
These were, for the most part, post-war Jews. They were either survivors or people like you and me who don't live in Israel. We didn't experience October 7th, but we're surviving this experience in the diaspora. And so these were post-war Jews who were able to channel that energy, who were able to grow and move on is not the right terminology, but take that experience, put it on the shelf, and do something positive for the world. And that gives me a lot of hope for us, for our children, for our friends and neighbors, for the Jewish community, to say, as Dan Senior said, right, the October 6th Jew is a snapshot in history that doesn't exist anymore. We are now either October 7th or October 8th Jews. Like, this is where we are, and this is what we can do with it. What do you think of that? Like, when you hear that, what do you think? Where does that hope take you?
Well, first of all, we're here every 80, 90 years or so. It's like our turn. That's what I feel like. It is our turn. We had a really good period where everyone felt bad for us. And then we start fighting back, and it's like, wait, no, 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 no. And that's what Never Again is us actually fighting back. And had this war happened, had Canada come into Vermont and done what Hamas did to the Jews, there'd be no Canada. There would be no Canada. No one would be dropping flyers saying, hey, listen, you should probably get out because they're hiding weapons in your mosque or your school. So we're going to want you to clear the area so we get rid of those weapons. It's I don't know. It's just, so here's an example. I was in Israel in June for an LGBTQ mission that was arranged by Sarah Milgram, who worked at the Israeli consulate and was murdered outside of the Jewish Museum with her fiancé-to-be after going to a lecture on how to get more aid to Gaza. Tell me what other country gives aid to their enemies. Okay. Anyway, she was murdered, and I went on this. So she picked me to be on her first mission to go. She was the LGBTQ liaison for the Israeli consulate and in the United States. And we were going on this pride mission and going all over, and it's pretty truly amazing. And she picked 5 Americans and 5 Canadians. And while we were there, Iran starts bombing. And we are spending most of the time in the shelter which is the parking garage of our hotel. And at one point, and I could go on and talk about that experience, but there's not enough time. But at one point, Iran bombed the the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv, which was literally a block away from us, that the windows in our hotel were shattered. The grocery store I went to that was attached to us was completely demolished. I had cappuccino at this adorable little coffee shop across the street from the embassy that day, gone. And at one point, we get out of the shelter, and at some point the following day, we walked outside to see the destruction. And there were people with their brooms cleaning up. They put up board over this coffee shop, and it said, "We will be back." No one was looting. There was a liquor store. The whole front was glass, gone. Everything was exposed. No one's taking anything. Everyone's helping everyone else. They're cleaning up. They're getting ready to move on. And that visual, I think of that sign on that wooden plank, "We will be back." And that to me is the October 8th Jew. And that's what gives me hatikva, hope. And, my son lives there. I go there. I feel so safe. People are like, I'm not going to go there. And I say, going to Israel is as safe as like when people are like, I don't go to New York City because you'll get mugged. It's that's exactly the same. It is the most, their people are so beautiful. The food, they hug. My son goes to Shabbat dinner at some family's house every Friday night. She takes care of the American basketball players. Like, we are such a resilient people, and we contribute, the Tikkun Olam, we contribute to the world. We make the world a better place. This war sucks. And I don't really agree a lot with the way Netanyahu behaves. I don't agree with the way a lot of people in this country who are in the government behave. I don't agree with a lot of other countries and how their leaders behave. But to say this one tiny land, look on a map that we shouldn't exist. Thank God. I learned on October 8th, thank God we have Israel to go to, because it ain't pretty here in New York City.
Right. Do you know who Einat Wilf is?
No. But
Einat Wilf is a former Knesset member. She's a politician. She's an absolutely brilliant woman. You will love her. I'll send you some links. She's absolutely amazing. I would vote for her for president of the world. I love her. She's got she started a party to run in the next election in Israel next year called the Oz Party. This is not
Dr.
a political campaign.
Dr. Oz Party. Wow.
Ayin Vav Zion, Oz. Ayin Zion. I have to make sure I'm accurate there. She talks about criticizing the Israeli government, and she's like, yeah, criticizing the Israeli government is something that every Israeli person does, right? We criticize, that's just like Americans criticize the Israeli government, and people in Canada criticize the Canadian government. Where you can't criticize the government in Iran, can't criticize the government in Gaza, can't criticize the government in, right? All these places where people are like, oh, they're the good guys. You can't criticize the government there.
Right. You have no free speech. Wait, Benji,
there's a difference. Yeah.
I mean, you're not really a Jew if you don't criticize. Okay, go ahead.
But her brilliant saying on that is, she says, it's okay to criticize if you criticize like a mother and not a mother-in-law, right? And she's like, we criticize the Israeli, right? She goes, you criticize the Israeli government and you say, hey, Bibi, I think you're a terrible person and you got to get out of the government so that we can have a better country, so that we can do better.
Right.
You criticize the Israeli government and say, I think that this policy, I think that this thing that happened is wrong and bad. Let's make it better so that we can live better lives. It's not, I disagree with Israel. It's an ethno state. It doesn't have the
It's
legitimacy
like,
to exist.
Benji, they
What are
don't
we
even
talking
do
about?
the due diligence. They don't know the policies. They don't know the government. They don't know the population.
Right.
Yeah.
People say to me, Israel started with death. Have you heard of America? Have you heard of China? Have you heard of Iran? Have you heard of Somalia? Have you heard of Uganda?
Sudan.
Have you heard of Sudan? Like, show me a country in the
Myanmar.
world. Right. Show me a country in the world that didn't
Right.
involve conflict to start the country. That's how countries are formed, right? But for some reason, we're held to a different standard. And it's not a double standard. It's a singular standard. We're the only ones who are held to that standard. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
It's crazy.
And sorry you're jealous, but, we're kind of really good people and talented and smart. Sorry.
By the way, I thought you were talking about me, and I was like, "What? I'm jealous of what?" I got you.
Oh, no, Ben.
I was reading an article about you that I found fascinating. It's in Hadassah magazine, and you were talking about your son, and you said, forgive me, I'm going to pull it up. I took a screenshot so that I can quote it accurately because it jarred me when you said. First, you said something beautiful. It said, referring to October 7th, it's a terrible situation. We're going to survive like we've survived before. And you talked about knowing who would hide me. That's a relatable experience. But you talked about your son, and you said he hasn't experienced any real anti-Semitism in the university. And that word, any real, or he hasn't much anti-Semitism. And that kind of jarred me a little bit, because I was like, could you imagine any other minority having a conversation about bigotry, and you're like, yeah, my son faced a little bit of it, but it wasn't enough to disrupt his life. It wasn't enough to make him leave. It wasn't enough to complain about, because other people have worse bigotry or have had worse, situations. Whereas as a parent, I'm not criticizing you as a parent. I'm talking about this thought process as a Jew in America today, right? Our job is to protect our children, and our job is to give our children opportunity. And there's this real phenomenon of, we see kids who are getting beat up in schools, and because my son didn't get beat up, he just faced some casual bigotry.
Right.
We're not going to complain about it. And
also, Benji, when you're the star basketball player at your school and you're 6'8", and you bring your team to the Final Four of the Division III. I mean, no one's going to mess with you. But that being said, when he was playing games, there were anti-Semitic taunts coming from the opposing team. And he did. I mean, I was so proud of him. He did go up he complained. He said something to their coach. He went to the head of the NESCAC athletics, and he didn't keep his mouth shut. And
what was the result
to me,
of that?
Huh?
What was the result?
Oh, they got whatever. It wasn't like, I guess they got spoken to or fined or penalty. I don't know. But he didn't shut up. He didn't say,
he didn't take
okay. And that's how I taught them about the gay thing. Here they are. They have two mothers. And at the time, it wasn't like there weren't a lot of, we were the first same-sex parents in their public school and stuff. And yet I taught them, be kind and be firm. You can't say that to me. That sounds like you mean this. And they're really good about it. And the fact that it's now, who gives a shit if your parents are gay? You're a Jew. I never thought, even though I have now become my mother with they hate us, they hate us, they hate us.
Right.
It's hard. And they talk about their friends who are Jewish and lefty left and don't get it. But I'm so happy they get it. And yeah, it's really sad. These kids are leaving college. It's awful. It's awful.
You wrote a book called 25 Questions for a Jewish Mother. I believe
Right.
that came out in 2006.
I think so. I got to look at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
my mother passed away in 97. I was 15 years
I'm
old.
sorry.
Well, thank you.
Oh,
didn't,
that's awful.
I didn't say it for that. I was saying it for context of
No,
the
I know.
question.
It's just so when you
Um,
lose your mother, and especially at that age. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So you wrote a book, 25 Questions for a Jewish Mother. If you were writing that book today,
Oh boy. Oh boy. You know, it was that book came out of a show I did, 25 Questions for a Jewish Mother, that toured all over. It's a beautiful show. And I often talk to the person I wrote it with, Kate Malloy Ryan, who's a playwright, and we want to do a post October 7th, 25 Questions for a Jewish Mother. And
well,
yet
then my
we
question's
know,
not far off.
yeah, we know the pushback that we will get from every theater. The theater community. We started the fucking show business in this country. I mean, hello. And yet they will push back. But I know that the Jews themselves will show up. And that's the other great thing about Jews. They lift each other up. Thank God for every Jewish organization in the world, because you know what they use for their fundraisers? Comedians. What other group of people uses comedians to raise money?
Well,
thank God. And, or your higher power. But yeah, there would be, I really want to do a post October 7th, because this was really about me coming to terms with becoming a mother and the stereotype of the Jewish mother and being a gay Jewish mother. And can you be a religious Jew or an observant Jew or a Jew and be gay? And so many people came to that show with their parents and then came out afterwards. And so many parents, mothers would talk to me after the show. Like, my daughter's gay. I don't know what to do. I'm like, there's nothing to do. But I go, she's going to be fine. She was born this way. She didn't ask to be born. It's not about you,
Right.
But that's the beauty of art. When you start, and then I also wrote a book, yes, I can say that, When They Come for the Comedians, We're All in Trouble, which is all about free speech. But it's true. When you start telling comedians what they can and cannot say, and theaters are saying, no, we can't have that show because this one will get pissed off, or that one is pro-Palestinian. Who's not Stop saying pro-Palestinian. Stop it. You say anti-Israel or pro-Hamas. That's it. Those are the terms.
Right. There's nobody who's anti-Palestinian civilians. It doesn't exist.
No one. Yes.
There's like 6 crazy people who are.
Exactly.
Your second book about free speech. So one of the episodes of this podcast was about some of the possible anti-Semitic things that John Lennon and Paul McCartney said, and we had Yuval David, who's also a gay
I love him.
activist. So Yuval was on the episode, and we talked about the difference between friends telling jokes and comedians who are professionals whose job it is to challenge your thought process, and hate speech and a lot of and people bullying and people who are making jokes at others' expenses. And a big part of that was, do I have the agency to walk away, or are we having this conversation, right? And one of the things that I mentioned was the show Kill Tony. Are you familiar with that show?
I know it, but I don't listen to it. Yeah.
So I listened to it. I find it hysterical, but the premise is this comedian Tony Hinchcliffe gives amateur comedians 60 seconds to tell their set, and then there's an interview and they roast each other. And this is not a politically correct show. So they're making fun of black people, they're making fun of gay people, they're making fun of Jews, they're making fun of everybody. It's an equal opportunity roast on anybody who's there. And the headline that I see is, if you keep up, if you participate in the joke, if you can handle yourself, you end up with a career, you end up with a job, you end up touring with their troupe. And so they have, comedians with disabilities who got roasted and stood there and was able to throw it back. And it's really beautiful. I've got a child with special needs. It's really beautiful to see comedians like Aaron Belial and Fiona Cawley and Martin Phillips, and these are comedians who really took that agency and were able to run with it in a beautiful way and stand up as strong comedians with disabilities, not disabled comics, right? Like these are great comedians who do it, and I love that, and I love the idea that comics being censored for saying what comics are supposed to do is insanity.
Don't censor comics. That's the last bastion of free speech. I mean,
right.
The stand-up comedy is a direct descendant of our First Amendment rights. There's not stand-up comedy in other countries. I mean, Canada, yeah, Britain, UK, whatever.
Right.
But the plethora are here, and it's a direct descendant, and taking our leaders to task is part of it, and making fun of us. There's nothing for a comedian. There's nothing better than another comedian roasting you, because the fact that they would take a time to write a joke about you is just, it's the greatest compliment in the world. But people don't understand that, and people don't understand how comedians think and joke. We say shit to each other we would never say to regular people. And also, you have to realize that with the Kill Tony, that's a specific audience that, their senses of humor. So if you fit in that genre, great. Like, my whole situation with subversive and edgy, which is the only funny kind of comedy for me, is that you want to make sure they're laughing for the right reason. When I think the audience is laughing for the wrong reason, especially with my Jewish material, that's my line, where I'm like, no, you're not laughing at the right spot. You're not laughing for the right reason.
Right. You're laughing at me. You're not laughing at the joke.
Or at Jews or
right.
Yeah.
Right. So, couple of questions to wrap this up. Where do you think John Lennon and George Harrison are not alive anymore? Obviously, Paul and Ringo are. They've been pretty much silent on this, but John and George were really the advocates.
Yeah.
And I say that in fairness to Paul and his vegetarian advocacy. But when it came to social issues, really John and George, where do you think John and George would be today?
I don't really want to know. Because
the answer might scare the shit out of all of us.
And yeah, I mean,
that's a sad state of affairs.
I've been so disappointed. It's one thing to, like, this whole Paul Simon thing that's happening now. It's so upsetting, because you think that people know better, or can think two thoughts at once, or are not going to believe the BS. I mean, look how much sympathy we had on October 8th. And then on October 9th, it was like, hey, we hate them. Wait, they deserve that, So, yeah, I don't really want to know that, because think about it. We look at people like Mark Ruffalo.
Oh.
Okay, so you look at Mark Ruffalo, who is like holier than thou, lives on the Upper West Side, where there's more Jews than anywhere in the United States. He has 22 million followers. There's 15 million Jews in the world. You have more followers than there are Jews in the world. You are spreading propaganda with the red hand and all that shit. Shut the fuck up. And he thinks, look how, I'm just so
It's the
righteous. And that is what I'm afraid of, because I've
right.
lost respect for so many. And it's not even Benj. It's not, I'm calling you Benj, but whatever. It's not, it's more like a deep sadness, you know? You go, oh my God, you too? Like, it's so soul crushing.
Yeah. Yeah. You described it well. All right. We have to leave on a positive note. So I'm
Yes,
gonna
joy
close
and
this.
joy and Jewish joy. Happy Hanukkah, yeah, oh yeah.
I'm gonna frame the closing question here. So my father was an Orthodox rabbi, and
I'm
he used to
sorry.
say, yeah, it wasn't easy. He used to say that the two biggest threats to Jewish continuity are, number one, the idea of Holocaust education being a primary focus of Jewish identity, and number two, the Yiddish expression "Schwer zu sein Yid," which means it's hard to be Jewish. Because if the messaging that we give our kids is it's hard to be Jewish and they're coming for us, why would they stick around? I recently found out that that wasn't my dad's quote, that it's a quote from Daniel Hartman of the Shalom Hartman Institute, but my dad's not here anymore to defend himself, so we'll let that go. I see October 7th as something that combined those two problems and then amplified them. And when I have kids like my own who are entrenched in Jewish community now and entrenched in Jewish advocacy, but sometimes are just like, hey man, I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Right.
We need to find Jewish joy and really focus on the positive narrative, and that's what Storied is all about. It's we're fighting anti-Semitism by focusing on a positive story, a
Right.
positive narrative. So when you hear the words Jewish contribution and Jewish collaboration in today's world, not ways, because that was yesterday, but in today's world, what do you think of when it comes to Jewish contribution and Jewish collaboration? And question number two is, when I say the words Jewish joy, what does that look like in your world?
Well, Jewish collaboration now to me means education and enlightening people. And we've survived by a complete like us. You got to like us. We're going to fight for you. We're going to fight for you. And I think I spoke to recently to a rabbi about this. In our advocacy for everyone else and everyone else's rights, we lost who we were. And so I think Jewish collaboration is saying, this is what it means, maybe for you to be, there's more than one way to be a good Jew, but you also have to understand what it is to be a Jew. And that means something like even just lighting the Shabbat candles. I say to Jewish collaboration, it's such a good question because there are so many successful Jews with a lot of followers who just don't say anything. And I recently said I was working with a comedian who is Jewish and has a huge following. And I said, just do me a favor. I know you don't want to say anything, but just post a picture of you lighting your menorah. Please. That's it. One tiny Jewish thing to let the world know that, and this goes right into the second part, that there is Jewish joy, that we are proud to be a Jew, and we do things that have been done for thousands and thousands of years, and we've been around for a long time, forever, from the beginning, and we're not going anywhere. And even if it's just a time, wearing a Magen David or eating a latke, anything. Show the world that you're a Jew and that you're proud and that you love being Jewish. I had a mother who loved being Jewish, loved everything about it, loved the rules, loved all the traditions. And although I wanted to kill myself because I didn't have an Oreo cookie until I was 25 years old, and I couldn't eat a Twinkie. I'm so happy I had that experience.
Is that because you were gay?
Yes.
That's a joke.
And that's what made me gay, actually, Benji. If I was able to have a Twinkie, I would not.
You wouldn't have been gay.
I would not have been gay. But I turned into a Twinkie by not having. No. But yeah, I think it's all about just saying we're here. You know, there's that whole chant with the gays. We're here, we're queer, get used to it. We're here, we're Jews, and we're not going anywhere.
I love it. All right, Jewish joy. What does that look like in your world?
It's rites of passage. It's that thing where you watch TV and you go, oh my God, that person's Jewish. And they wrote that song, or, that whole, connecting. Jewish joy is connection. It's so funny being a Jew now. I live in Orthodox neighborhood. There's so many kosher restaurants. There's so many different kinds of Jews, kippot, wigs, not wigs, lefty left, but just a little wink of like, I got your back. Isn't this fun? Enjoy your holidays. Yes, they're all based on fucking miserable, like, this happened to us and but go hear Jewish comedy. Go listen to Jewish music. Go eat Jewish food. Go listen to klezmer music. Do something. Be proud. Support one another. And realize that as miserable as we are, we wouldn't be here if there wasn't Jewish joy. We might push it down and not acknowledge it, but come on. Even the most pessimistic person has some optimism, or they wouldn't be around. So, yeah.
I love it. When you talked about the connections, I think my favorite Jewish connection story in the research and doing the show, the live show, the podcast, was in the research for, I think it's story number 3, where we talk about the Beatles getting on television. There's this guy, it's something Clark, but he's a Jewish guy who was a singer whose singing career basically went down the tubes, and he then opened up this music publishing company, and he's the guy who got the Beatles on the show
On
Thank
Ed
Your Lucky
Sullivan?
Stars.
Oh,
On Thank Your Lucky Stars. In right. So in doing research about him, turns out his big break in music was he was the voice of Robin Hood. Okay.
No,
he was the voice
really?
Not the voice. He was the voice of the song for Robin Hood's. He was the jingle, the song for the Robin Hood show, the original Robin Hood. How did he get that gig? There was a Jewish woman by the name of Hannah Weinstein who was blacklisted in Hollywood in the 30s because she was Jewish. She ended up creating this sort of cadre of misfits. These were Jews, gay people, people who were blacklisted for various reasons. And her story was Robin Hood, and she created the Robin Hood show, and she produced Robin Hood with this cast of Jewish and gay blacklisted writers,
oh my God, I
and
love
comedians and musicians and makeup artists and set designers, and the whole thing was Hannah Weinstein and her cherry picking these people who nobody else would touch, and she's like, I got you, boo, and made it happen. And I'm just like, I love this story so much.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's an amazing song. Hannah Weinstein. She's the catalyst there. So
I love that. It's such a Jewy name.
It's such a Jewy name. Yeah. So, okay, this is the conclusion of season 1 of the Storied podcast.
Mazel tov on season 1.
Thank you so much. Season 2 is going to be about grunge. and I'm really excited. We're going to launch that hopefully March of 26. We'll get there. I hope I'm not misquoting myself, and I hope that Leanne doesn't hurt me for saying that here. I'll also tell you that March 29th, we're doing the 5th live show, the 5th script of Storied, which is about Jewish women's contribution to music. So we're going to be talking about everybody from Carole King as a musician, but also as a songwriter. We're going to be talking about...
Oh my God, so many songs. Like, you have no idea how many songs.
Much.
What about Laura Nero? Oh my God, I want to go to that. You better put me on
March
that season. All right, whatever.
Yep. Well, come to the live show.
Where is
March
it?
29th here in Detroit.
I'm not coming to
March
Detroit.
29th. Come to Detroit. Well, I'll book a show for you.
Okay. Perfect.
All right. We're going to make this happen.
All right.
We're going to make this happen. Okay. Thank you so much, Judy, for being here. I appreciate the hell out of you.
Oh, right. You're welcome.
That's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and leave us a review. It helps the algorithm show other people this podcast. If you'd like to sponsor an episode, again, reach out. We would love to talk to you. And make sure you check out the show notes for the links to our socials and our sponsors. This show was produced by Ryan Storm from This Is Storm Sound. Editing done by Andrea Rizzuto. Production management done by Eric Nelson. Booking by Leanne Deutsch of 16 Mile Talent. Design work done by Tessa Hewitt. Research done by Avishai Bauman. Now, the music you heard is recorded by Evan Sherman, but was actually written by my late father, Rabbi Yosil Rosenzweig, as the original opening of the song that he wrote for the diaspora Yeshiva band called Pitchu Li. I'm your host and storyteller, Benji Rosenzweig, and this has been another episode of Storied, the untold Jewish stories behind your favorite music, Season 1, The Beatles.